Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about the difference between getting the first and the second job. So let's get into it. The question in question was, Hi Frederick, I have a question. Good. Could you compare the difference between getting your first job and a second job? Well, I would say that it's pretty much like night and day with just a few like footnotes that should probably be in place. But overall, guys, if you've ever felt that have you ever seen one of those old movies where somebody tries to make it big and become like a singing star or a rock star or something like that, and the whole movie starts out with them just being in dive bars or trying their best and just getting put down and put down and put down, and then they do that one thing or meet that one person, and then the whole thing changes, and then you become this super mega ultra star overnight. That is the difference. I swear to you, it's loose. Like those movies are all loosely based on every single career move made by a software developer. I promise you, it's loosely based on all of us. And that footnote that I was talking about is that this is only true depending on the differences between the first and the second job in terms of time and also in terms of what you have been doing. So you've heard me say a few times before that quality does matter in software engineering, not just because it makes you a better software developer, but it also matters a lot in terms of your perceived value. What do I mean by that? Well, it's very simple. If you have had your first job for just a few months, that's not going to help you all that much when you want to go and get your second job. Statistically, what you're looking for is a career opportunity, uh, ideally in a real IT company, that you hold for 1 to 5 years, roughly. That is roughly the amount of time where people get excited about you, where they hunger for your developer flesh. And there are, of course, job opportunities where going higher than that, or where they actually request more time, but that is the average amount of time that they're looking for. Almost all of the IT companies globally. And the thing is here, though, that it has to be, well, it doesn't have to be, but usually it should be quality experience. You see, there is a hierarchy in the developer community, and the game is played in terms of perceived value. This is very unfair to the people who take a different route than the standard average developer. And the standard average developer goes to college, takes a bachelor's, and then goes into their first serious IT company, in other words, a company of some size or like a corporation, something like that, and then they move on from there. That is the normal, or that is the ideal path for a lot of developers who want a fairly easy path through their career. If you're not doing that, you are immediately in a lot of situations perceived as being less valuable. An example would be if you have 5 years of work experience at a serious IT company, that is going to weigh in many cases a lot higher than if you have 5 years as a freelancer. That doesn't actually mean that you need necessarily to be better than the freelancer. It's just a matter of perception. The normal perception is that you will be more valuable because if you have been working in a real IT company and then you want to go to another IT company, as you can imagine, they know that you've been trained in a similar sort of environment to the one that they have. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a better developer. It just means that they feel more comfortable hiring you. And in many cases, the same thing is true in the case where you might go from being a no, not a freelancer, from being a corporate level developer, going into a startup or going into a very small agency or starting your own thing or something like that. Usually the perception is that anything that is in the normal career path for the vast majority of developers is the thing that is like that's your strongest starting point. And if you're a freelancer or self-taught or like a small-time consultant or something like that, it's usually trickier for you to get as much attention as you would have had if you did it this other way. Uh, but I would still say that even if you have 5 years of working as a freelancer, you still will see like I mean, if you are literally starting from scratch and you're self-taught, or it doesn't have to be self-taught, it's just that you've never had a job before, you're going to see a very similar sort of difference. If you've been working for a few years and you've had no prior experience, well, then your first job is most likely going to be a little bit easier than if you have no experience. So experience is always a factor when you're looking for that for your first or your second job. Like any job, basically, it's going to matter a lot. So what I want you to take away from this is that the difference between your first job and your second job, if you manage to get a quality type of deal where you get trained for 1 to 5 years roughly in a decent company. It doesn't have to be Google, it doesn't have to be Facebook, it has to be a company that has a serious IT department where you're doing serious level work. The difference between the interest for that first position when you're out of college or you're self-taught and the second position is going to be enormous. I'm not kidding you when I say that the difference is that as big as in those movies where nobody cares about you and then all of a sudden everybody wants you. And I can promise you that it's going to happen without you having, like, you most likely don't, for depending on where you are, of course, and a few personal aspects as well. It's actually very likely that you won't have to look for a job. You're going to turn down more offers than you ever are going to be interested in many cases, if you have that quality experience. The story is very similar even if you don't have quality quote unquote experience. It's just that you should be aware of that the really high demand, the craze that everybody is telling you about, is usually very focused around the developers who go through the mainstream way or the mainstream career paths. But this demand for developers is still going to be sky high as long as you can prove that you know what you're doing. Have a great day.